Welcome to The Authentic Disciple, where we follow Christ in dynamic ways, transformed by grace, sustained by the Spirit, and bearing witness to his redemptive mission through faith, love, and obedience. In our last episode, we saw how disciples responded immediately to Jesus' authority. Today, we will look at how this emphasis shifts from immediate action to the deeper recognition of Jesus' divine authority. In Mark 2, 1 through 10, a group of believers bring a paralyzed man to Jesus. Seeing their faith, Jesus declares, "Son, your sins are forgiven." The crowd expected physical healing, but Jesus grants a spiritual healing through forgiveness. This pronouncement provokes concern among the scribes, who reason in their hearts, so they think to themselves, "Why does this man speak this way? He is blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Their internal distress reveals that they recognize Jesus' claim to having divine authority, even though they reject that notion. In other words, they disagree that Jesus has divine authority to forgive sins, but they recognize that's the implicit claim that Jesus is making by pronouncing forgiveness of this man's sin. Although this doubt is occurring in their hearts, Jesus is immediately aware in his spirit that they were reasoning this way within themselves. And in verses 7 through 11, he says to them, "Why are you reasoning about these things in your heart? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up and pick up your pallet and walk?' But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the paralytic, "I say to you, get up, pick up your pallet, and go home." Jesus, aware of the scribes' doubts, confronts them, not by debating, but by spiritually and physically healing the paralytic. In doing so, Jesus validates his authority as the Son of Man, showing that his power extends beyond physical healing to granting spiritual forgiveness of sins. The crowd responds in amazement, glorifying God and saying, "We have never seen anything like this." Mark demonstrates that both believers and skeptics recognize Jesus' authority, even if they don't fully grasp its significance. We see another example of this in Mark 3, 1 through 6. In this passage, the disbelieving Pharisees reveal their opposition to Jesus even before he performs a miracle. Mark notes that the Pharisees were watching Jesus closely on the Sabbath as he entered the synagogue. Specifically, they were watching him to see if he would heal a man on the Sabbath so they might accuse him of wrongdoing, as healing on the Sabbath would have been akin to wrongfully working on the Sabbath. As Jesus entered the synagogue, he says to the man with the withered hand, "Get up and come forward." And then he asks the Pharisees whether it is lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save a life or to kill. This question creates a dilemma for the Pharisees, as answering in the affirmative would undermine ritual Sabbath practices, while answering in the negative would risk them losing favor with the synagogue congregation. Because of this dilemma, the Pharisees remained silent, unwilling to answer because of their hardened hearts towards Jesus. Jesus' question exposes the Pharisees' true motivations, which are later revealed as a desire to destroy Jesus. In the silence of the Pharisees, Jesus proceeds to heal the man, displaying his divine authority. In responding to the healing, the Pharisees immediately began conspiring to destroy Jesus. The actions of the Pharisees show that although they reject the notion that Jesus has divine authority, they cannot deny his power, and they perceive that power as a threat to their own power. If you listened to last week's episode, you should be starting to see how the Pharisees' reaction sharply contrasts with the reaction of Jesus' disciples, who responded to his authority in faith without hesitation. In comparing the two groups, we see that regardless of belief or disbelief, those who encounter Jesus' divine authority are compelled to recognize God's sovereignty and respond according to their inner beliefs of either faith or rejection. Ultimately, Mark affirms that whether in belief or disbelief, every encounter with Jesus results in recognition of God's sovereignty. The difference lies in how we respond to that encounter, either by responding in faith to Jesus' authority or out of rejection of his authority. We'll pause here for this episode, and next time we'll see how crowds, spirits, and individuals respond to Jesus' authority in ways that reveal both faith and fear. Until then, may your recognition of Jesus' authority lead you deeper into faith and grant you boldness to remain obedient to his words.